All right, picture this. Use your imaginations vividly for this one. A volcano just erupted like 10 minutes ago right outside your window. And as a student, as a researcher, you're interested in information about the volcano exploding. You're weirdly unconcerned about your safety because you're brave and everything. So, where are you going to look for information about this great big event? First, pop quiz. A, right outside your window, because that's where it's happening. B, the New York Times. In print, naturally, you have a subscription. C, CNN.com. Or D, the Marriott Library's catalog. Okay, consider your choices really carefully. Make an educated guess. You got one? Okay, let's review the answers. If you chose A, your window, this guy in the pink shirt, this totally random guy, he and I disapprove of this choice. First things first, are you some kind of volcano expert? Are you a journalist? I don't know if you're really qualified to be a source of information on erupting volcanoes right outside your window, aside from maybe like an eyewitness. So, sorry, you are not the source of information we're looking for. If you chose B, the New York Times in print, I commend you on your sophisticated news sources. Okay, so the New York Times is a wonderful news publication, right? The thing with this answer is that I said in print, right? So there's the whole taking things to the printers to actually get them printed, and that takes some time, right? So it's very unlikely, unless the volcano erupted like 20 minutes before the New York Times went to press, that you're going to look at the New York Times in print, at least, for information about your exploding volcano. If you chose D, the library catalog, I'm on to you, apple polisher. I'm kidding. The library is such a good answer for most questions. Well, at least when I pose them, right? Saying the Marriott Library or my librarian, Adriana, like we're sources, that's fine. We're resources, right? Except while we do have a whole library full of print resources and a whole bunch of electronic sources that are accessible through our catalog and our databases, they're not going to be quite as up to date as the last choice, CNN.com. So while CNN.com may not seem like a brilliant scholarly source of information, for this question, it really is. Yay! You're the winner of the quiz if you took this as your answer. Okay, I guess quizzes don't have winners, right? Anyway, yeah, so CNN is a totally legitimate source of information when you're looking for up-to-date information about current events, like so current that they happened 10 minutes ago. So let's talk about those different types of information in kind of a broader way. Let's take a look at the editorial continuum, or if you want to think about it this way, the publishing continuum. On one end of the continuum, we have very few eyes looking at content. On the other end, you have very, very many eyes. So starting with few eyes, this guy, he's got 2 eyes. He's writing a personal blog about the exploding, erupting volcano. I don't know. He has no editorial process. Nobody's fact-checking him. Really not a good source of information. I mean, academically, do you really want to count on this guy? I'm sure he's smart. I'm totally not doubting you, guy with the dot matrix printer who is blogging, but yeah, I'm sorry. Most of the time, blogs aren't great sources of information. Though, as far as the publishing continuum goes, they are the most current things that you're going to find online, right? After that, you've got the news. So this is stuff like television, print, and internet news. And whenever a significant event happens, the news sources are the first to report it, well, the first who have an editorial process at work. So naturally, the stuff that's being published online or reported on TV is going to hit the public first because nothing is being printed, and printing presses, they take some time. But after that, you get the printed news next. And that's a good, accurate, usually accurate source of information. Always evaluate your information, you guys. And then at the other end, the far end of the spectrum, or continuum, I mean, you've got the most eyes looking at the content and evaluating it. And here is where you're going to find stuff like peer-reviewed journal articles. So after an event happens, or yeah, we'll go with an event. After an event happens, researchers and news analysts start writing about it. Researchers do things like they create white papers and they go to conferences and present. And eventually they write scholarly journal articles, while analysts at this end of the continuum, writing for the general public, they go from news articles to the much lengthier books. So you've got many, many more eyes looking at the content and evaluating it and verifying its accuracy and authoritativeness and quality. So that's the editorial continuum and where those different types of information sources fall. So I want to delve a little bit more deeply into the end of the continuum with the many, many eyes and talk about the peer review process. I'll probably talk about it a lot, this entire school year. So Wikipedia says of the peer review process, I'm serious, I am quoting Wikipedia directly. Scholarly peer review, also known as refereeing, is the process of subjecting an author's scholarly work, research, or ideas to the scrutiny of others who are experts in the same field before a paper describing this work is published in a journal. The work may be accepted, considered acceptable with revisions, or rejected. Peer review requires a community of experts in a given and often narrowly defined field who are qualified and able to perform impartial review. So, that's going to be some pretty hardcore, awesome information, right? Those are good sources. In most circles on the university campus, whenever you hear the term peer review or refereed, that's considered like the ultimate in academic publishing. So that stuff takes a long time to get published and it undergoes many reviews and sometimes many revisions. And articles, academic articles, can sometimes take longer than even books to get written and published. So good place to look for information, you guys, as budding researchers. So, how do you know then what kind of information is going to best meet your research needs? Well, the easiest answer to that question is this. It's probably on the syllabus. Your professor is actually going to identify for you, in most cases, like 99.9% of your research projects, what kinds of information sources are considered acceptable. So sometimes you'll hear things like, I accept popular sources. So things like book reviews, editorials, newspapers, or the professor will say, I will only accept scholarly sources of information. And that's where you're going to look at stuff written by, academics, experts in the field. Refer to the popular versus scholarly tutorial for more information about that whole conundrum. But really, yeah, just ask if you don't know for sure what is expected of you information source wise. And that's it for this tutorial. You are well on your way to becoming a top-notch researcher. Mark my words, by the end of your academic careers, you're going to be good at this stuff.